All right. Well, welcome everyone to using on-bill financing to break down existing barriers to energy upgrades. This course is approved for 1 hour continuing ed, GBCI, AIBD, Certified Green Professional, and BPI NonWholeHouse, among many others, as well as the AIA Health, Welfare, and Safety HSW, which may make it applicable for your state-based design or contractor license. Today I am your moderator. My name is Brett Little and I'm the executive director here at the nonprofit, the GreenHome Institute. And today we're going to be exploring a case study and learning the basics and next steps to take on inclusive financing and why we're going to need new strategies to move energy efficiency forward in our homes and our buildings. A real quick word of our sponsor, thanks to Niagara Conservation. Niagara Conservation has many different low flow devices that are stylish and function. One of them including is the Niagara Stealth. It's no surprise that toilets are the #1 cause of high water bills, and yet savings are only one simple flush away. Niagara Conservation has answered the call by developing the world's #1 water-saving toilet using advanced vacuum-assisted technology. That's right, I said vacuum and not pressure-assisted. We have glowing reviews from multifamily affordable housing renovation specialists who only spec these toilets because of their durability and cost savings. You know, if they work in that situation, they can work in any. ADA-approved models are available as well. So how low can you go? The Stealth 0.8 gallon per flush and single flushes if you want to deal with all the hassle of 2 confusing buttons. They also have the Nano, which is dual and goes down to 0.5 for those of you who really want to save more water. Then also make sure to check out the Niagara Earth at 1.25 and then the aerator down to 0.5 that you don't even notice a difference. All of them are WaterSense certified today. Check out Niagara Conservation today for your next project. And then thanks to our top tier sponsor, Mitsubishi Electric, they provide all your heating, cooling, and filtration needs all in one. Today's low-load homes require right-sized equipment that most systems, especially gas-fired, cannot meet. Mitsubishi has low-load, high-efficient heat pumps that dehumidify and cool in the summer and work in reverse to heat in the winter. Going ductless reduces costs and makes it easier to meet Energy Star version 3 and LEED for Home certification. Check out Mitsubishi Comfort today for all your HVAC needs. All right, well, I want to welcome our presenter, Alice Madden, the staff member at Community Power, formerly Minneapolis Energy Options, an energy democracy nonprofit with a mission to activate Minnesota cities and towns to create a clean, local, equitable, affordable, and reliable future. She supports coalition work on inclusive financing, cooperatively owned community solar gardens, and community peer learning about efficiency. So with that, Alice, welcome, and please take it away. Just so you know, you're still on mute. There you go.
I was just mic checking there and realized I was still on mute. Thank you. So thank you all very much for having me. Thanks for the introduction, Brett. And as he mentioned, I work with Community Power, which is a local energy democracy nonprofit in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And we are really focused on the clear mission, which Brett mentioned, the clean, local, equitable, affordable, and reliable energy future. And really what that boils down to is how do we place frontline communities who are going to be experiencing and are experiencing the brunt of climate change in decision-making seats so that the benefits are, the incentives and benefits to take action are really being experienced by those communities as they're also kind of battening down the hatches as we move forward into the future. Just a note about questions. Brett has kindly offered to moderate the question and answer portion. So what I'm gonna try to do here is just have everybody hold questions until towards the end. And if there's any urgent questions about jargon that people don't understand or volume level or anything like that that's more immediate, please let Brett know and I'll try to answer those in a moment, and then the rest we'll just hold till the end. So just to start off with some context setting, because I think we spend a lot of time in these spaces of really detail-oriented technical conversations, I'm guessing from where most folks are coming from who would attend these webinars, and just moving back out into the forest, seeing the forest through the trees, here. You'll likely be familiar with this, but just want to ground us in that before we begin. So why does energy efficiency matter? There's a couple of beautiful hourglass figures that kind of capture this moment that we're in now. And I think it is safe to say everyone is feeling this, that we're in this moment of clear opportunity to shift how we're relating to our home. And that as we are really altering the face of our planet, it's also altering the face of our communities and how able we are to survive. And one of the biggest causes of this, greenhouse gas emissions, the three largest portions of that were electricity generation and transit and agriculture. And transit has now just surpassed electricity because we've been decarbonizing it over the last decade. But it's still one of the top three reasons. Why else does energy efficiency matter? And this is a kind of bringing in our energy democracy lens, which is this whole behemoth of an electric grid that we use on a day-to-day basis is massively inefficient. And we talk a lot about building efficiency, and that's really the most tangible, immediate, everyday presence that we're working on, and also that I think regular people just have access to change. But all along the system, you see it at points A and B along this grid infrastructure. Those are the big reasons, the kind of end goal of how our energy efficiency at home will affect these first two portions of the energy grid, is where we're generating our power and how we're transmitting it. There's about a 35% loss at the power plant. There's another 10% of that remaining energy lost along the transmission and distribution system. And then depending on what you're using at your home level, there's a massive loss there too, depending on what you're using. And there's a great short video out of a group from Australia that says if you start off with 100 units of coal, you'll end up with 1 unit that you're actually using. So all this waste along the energy. So efficiency altogether is so critical, so that we're not completely destroying our critical resources and wasting them in the process. So the more that we can get really, really efficient, the more we can minimize the cost of both A and B, the generation and transmission, and shave that peak load across system-wide. So another this is like second to last piece of context setting. This is the Boundary Waters. This is in the northern part of the state of Minnesota and into Canada. This is one of the kind of flashpoints of mining and extraction, that we're getting all of these precious rare earth minerals to create our solution to this massive climate crisis that we're in. And so every piece of wasted energy that we're using, we are over extracting beautiful places that are both home for people and wildlife, but also our ancestral homelands of indigenous communities who have been fighting for the land that they live on since the beginning of colonization. So every piece of how efficient we are is really being good stewards of this land that we're on, and also being in better relationship with the indigenous folks who we share this land with. And then the last piece that I just want to bring up is this is a good summary of to the naysayers of we can't do 100% renewable energy. Yes, we can. Here's a quick snapshot of how we do this with wind, solar, hydro, biomass, storage. But all of this just to orient you to this graphic here, the demand curve here is based on a massive reduction in energy use altogether, like what we actually need. And in order to not overspend on these new technologies and replacing these old dirty infrastructure, we need to be really, really smart about how we're using energy. So all that is to say, I know most folks are familiar with this, but I just wanted to ground us in that this is why we're working on energy efficiency. This is why we at Community Power are working on energy efficiency and see it as this key place to revisualize, not as some, here's a way to save a couple of bucks, although that's great, but this is how we need to be viewing our energy system, is through the lens of energy efficiency as the core and first and foremost resource that we have. sorry, I lied. Here's one last piece of context, which is the folks who are, in a more intimate way and everyday way that's really tangible, experiencing energy efficiency is folks who have the kind of naturally occurring affordable housing is what I think it's often referred to. But these older homes that aren't very well insulated, aren't well maintained, have air conditioning units instead of central air. And folks in communities are heating their homes with ovens, are experiencing asthma and other health conditions that are related to poorly ventilated home spaces, and are being priced out based on new construction that is being billed as this sort of green infrastructure, but isn't actually keeping the affordability piece there. So how can we preserve this old, really sturdily constructed housing stock? And it's a huge portion of our housing stock, especially, at least speaking from the Midwest Minnesota perspective, and not just tear those out and trash them, but renovate them and make sure that they're really serving the needs of the people whose homes it is. So all of that context setting, we have this urgent need to work on energy efficiency and to reshape how we relate to it and making it a core focus. There's huge benefits to workforce. You can't outsource those jobs, going into homes and making those energy efficiency upgrades. Circulates local dollars in the community, more comfort, more health and safety inside the home, lowers energy bills, and addresses this climate issue. And we have tons of folks who are well-skilled and working on this all the time, including all the folks on this webinar today. So what is holding all of us back? And Jessica, if you wouldn't mind doing the poll really quick, I bet the folks who can answer this question. So the question is, are you a renter? Just really quick. Yes, no, not now, but have been, or never, but someone I love is. We'll just take that really quickly and then bring us back to the full group. Great. So there's only 10% of us who haven't on the call today. Obviously not representative of everyone in the country or your state where you are, but that's a pretty substantial percentage of people who have direct experience being a renter. Thanks, Jessica, if you don't mind closing that out, thank you. But I'm guessing that people who have that experience or who know people who have can tell you pretty quickly what is one of the key barriers to that, and that's homeownership. And that's one of the 3 barriers that I'm going to focus on and just highlight. And again, like all the things about tariff-based on inclusive financing is coming up very shortly, but just all of this context is important to understand why this tool is so different, and the tweaks in how we're doing energy efficiency through this financial mechanism is so critical to a wider adoption of energy efficiency and all the brilliant things people are coming up with of how to save more energy. So, upfront money. I'm sure everyone is familiar with how much these projects cost, at least a couple $1,000s, if not more. Homeownership status, the only people who have decision-making power, again, back to the renter question, who can make improvements in a building, even if a landlord wants to. Often they don't have the upfront money, going back to the first thing, but renters really don't have any large-scale decision-making power over their homes. Credit scores and debt accumulation, we'll get into that a little bit more. And then unclear incentives for the customer of, how much will this save me now if I really need to be saving money, if I have to invest all this money up front. And inconvenience, if you're getting multiple bills from contractors, if it's not, you have your electric bill and your gas bill and your water bill, and then you have this whole other thing for your energy efficiency upgrade. There's a lot of confusion and more bureaucratic processes to navigate. So we're just going to focus on these top 3, money, homeownership, and credit, as these key barriers that inclusive financing addresses, but really just boiling those down to all of our solutions around energy efficiency really need to address these things. This graph really quickly is from the Congressional Budget Office. Our current economic context is, we've seen a massive wealth transfer, where the poorest among us are getting less and less of a share of the wealth that's in this country, and the gap there is widening. So first talking about this upfront cost barrier. Low-income ratepayers are often subsidizing high-income rate participation, both because they tend to use less energy and also because many of the state programs, again, speaking from a Minnesota context, are where everyone pays in, but you have to have good credit to get some of that money out, with the exception of some of the weatherization programs that are free or reduced cost. Low-income households are less likely to have energy-saving measures like compact fluorescent bulbs and low-flow shower heads, but 25% more likely to have energy-intensive appliances like space heaters, or those electric space heaters, which are both a health hazard and higher cost, and 50% more likely to rely on window air conditioning units. Getting into the credit piece of this, 50% of US renters and 20% of homeowners have a credit score of less than 650. I think this has increased a little bit in the last couple of years, but that's still a pretty massive barrier there. With the exception of limited capacity energy assistance programs, you have to pass this credit check. And the vast majority of solar options that don't require upfront money require a credit score or charge a premium per kilowatt hour. Jessica, would you mind doing the second poll there? Just to give another grounding in what how much debt we're talking about. This question is, what would you guess is the average debt load as of 2018 for a US household? And that's people from 18, I think, up to 65. Great. All right. So we had a tie for highest number of guessers from 27,000 and 38,000. 38,000 is correct. This is a study from Northeastern Mutual that found that that's the average debt load is 38,000. And you can imagine what the main sources of that is: credit card debt, medical debt, college debt, mortgages, and then all the day-to-day costs that people take that out. And I think another study found that paying utility bills was the number one reason to take out a payday loan, above rent and above just other living expenses. And the last one, again, just really quickly coming back to the renter issue, the average American moves about every 8.5 years, and it's more frequent for low income and people of color, which is shorter than most payback periods for most of the substantial energy savings measures. So you can see there's a disincentive. Even if your landlord was like, go for it, let's share this cost, you don't really have an incentive to pay that upfront cost if you're going to move pretty soon, and they'll have that debt follow you. And then there's a split incentive, as everyone knows, for both the landlord and tenant to make upgrades. Landlord holds the property rights, but tenant pays for energy in many cases. Sometimes that's the landlord holds the energy bills as well. But so again, just to boil down this context, and I know this is a lot of preamble, but it's really important to understand who our audience is when we're doing these energy efficiency upgrades and how accessible they really are if we want them to take hold. So if we're going to get widespread adoption and make this a critical resource of energy efficiency, first and foremost, we need to address these big three barriers. And they are upfront cost, credit, and homeownership or property ownership. So what if, let me just pause here, and what if we started to think about energy efficiency as a grid investment rather than some kind of personal endeavor? And I think that's where this tool comes in, is inclusive financing in the places that it's been adopted. And the core way that it's modeled is that there's no personal debt, there's no credit score check, there's no upfront cost, and the savings exceed the cost starting day one. So the offer to the customer is, would you like to save money on your energy bills, be more comfortable, and not pay anything and not have any kind of financial hurdles? That's the offer to the customer. The payments and savings stay with the user, so it's all financed on the energy bill. So there's not a second or third bill that you're getting in the mail that's from a different provider that you don't necessarily have a built relationship with. And it's low risk. The default rate is staggeringly low to non-existent. So when you look at all of these criteria on the right side of what inclusive financing does, and we're like seconds away from getting into the how for those who are feeling antsy, is that this is remarkably like how we do every other piece of energy infrastructure. No one comes up to your door and says, hey, do you want to receive electricity? Well, we're gonna, from this coal plant that we have, we're gonna need to see your credit score. We're gonna need some upfront cash to like help pay for this thing. It's all financed through the energy bill, and there's no, are you or are you not financially fit to receive electric power? It's all sort of this kind of more collective shift of this is a public good.